What I was going to ask was like, what you're kind of. Well, I suppose we've kind of gone over quite a lot of it, really. Like, we all have these mental health journeys, don't we? We all have these jumps, as we grow up. And I think something I really tried to talk about a lot on the podcast is how you've experienced certain like things that you associate with mental health from when you was young all the way up to now. And I know that can get very deep, but
Oh yeah,
I
get
think
ready.
it can go even just as, I suppose, just as minor as I didn't realise that I used to have anxiety when I was young. I didn't realise that the way that I felt when I looked around the class and everyone was, doing their spelling tests and do it like really well. Like a teacher would call out a word, and in my head I'd just be like, I have no idea what that is, and I am terrified. And I'd look around, and everyone else was writing it down, and I thought, I can't even fathom like how they can find this so easy. And I didn't know that was anxiety, and I was only like 8, 9, maybe younger. So it just is there anything that you could kind of look back on and think, oh yeah, that was maybe
I mean,
more now than
for
I
me
think
it was depression, like because basically I had a really fucked childhood that is like, it's not worth going into details, but like I have seen and done things that I should not have at this age. And basically, like, I remember being depressed for as far as I can remember, almost like from age 13 or 14, which is really, really young. Like, it's been most of my life.
Yeah.
And like for years and years, I thought it was like normal to cry like every week, like when coming home and stuff. So like that's my experience with this kind of stuff.
So it's like quite an entrenched thing that you knew about. You would behave this way and things would happen and you'd feel a certain way, but you just thought that was just the way things were.
Yeah, I thought it was normal. Also because like it was a really abusive household. So like there was no one to explain to me how to feel things or like what was normal to feel or not to feel. So like when I was crying, I was just hearing like, shut up, you're making too much noise, and not like anything about how if it's normal, not normal, or maybe I should get help or like this kind of stuff. And since I would like only cry at home, like it went unnoticed at school basically. So like I went on for years before like finally at the age of 21, like talking to someone who was depressed and actually diagnosed with it, and who was saying me like, oh yeah, I feel like this and that, and I was like, that's been my life.
Yeah.
All this time, like why is that different? And then like it made me really reflect on like maybe what I was experiencing was actually depression, because I just thought I was lazy, because like one of the biggest symptoms of depression is actually not crying. At least for me, it actually was not crying, but that feeling of not being motivated enough to do anything really was really brutal for me, like all my life.
So like
But yeah, like
presented mostly as
I'm
like
doing
just,
better now.
yeah, like, well, I mean, if you were to take that, even that, just like that trait there, you saying that being really demotivated was a massive part of how your depression presented in you, and even not knowing it at the time, just the pure fact that you can self-motivate and get things done, and you've got applied skill, and that really shows that, really, like, you are your all your work right now is just down to like yourself. So that's that kind of almost proves that trait has gone in some, has changed in some way.
Yeah, it's still there from time to time, but it's under control, which is like sometimes it's just the goal, like you don't always get to cure depression, at least.
Yeah.
And like so like for years I just thought I had depression and anxiety, and like I didn't know, first of all, I didn't know you could accumulate, like have multiple of
Yeah.
mental health issues at once. But like when I first went to a psychiatrist, he was like, "Oh yeah, your anxiety actually comes from your depression." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I see." That actually makes sense.
I really agree with that, because I remember thinking to myself, I was going through a time in my life when the act of going to work put me in physical pain. I felt like
Yes,
I was like, oh, there's something wrong with my heart. Like, I don't know what it is, but every time I go to work,
same.
I feel like there's something going wrong with my heart. And it was my partner at the time, who suffered really badly with anxiety, who said, I think you've just got anxiety. And I was like, I don't have anxiety. I don't get anxiety. I get depression. That's the thing that I get. Because I saw
Yeah,
it as
same,
this,
same.
I saw it as this kind of like scale, and it was like, once you present in one direction, oh, you're just that from now on. You don't go the other way.
Yeah, I actually had the same thoughts. And actually, like your experience with work was my experience with working for someone else, like all my life, basically. Like I always end up having this like pit in my stomach and like really bad chest pain whenever I was about to go to work. Like
Yeah.
no matter if work is going good or not, at some point I always get that, and it's actually very physically painful for me to go to work after a while. And it makes it really hard to keep a job for long.
Yeah. Especially
Basically.
when it's so difficult to explain to somebody, because if you go to a doctor and say, I've got this, it's a problem or something, they might not think, oh, maybe it's anxiety. It'll just be,
Yes.
oh, let's try and treat this physical pain. And if you treat it like a physical pain, you try and, a lot of the time, everything you try to do will not help, because that's not
Yes.
where the root of it comes from. You can't take a paracetamol for, for anxiety. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that doesn't work, sadly.
No. I think it's something that I've really gotten to know more and more. That our emotional states do present very physically, and very
Yes.
much to the point of it becoming an actual physical issue that needs to be dealt with in a physical way, if there's not enough acknowledgement going on.
I mean, I don't know if that's been your experience as well with depression, but like for me, when my depression gets really bad, like from a certain point, I feel very disconnected from my body. Like I don't feel the hunger. I don't feel like I do feel pain, but that's pretty much all I feel with my body.
Yeah.
And like I don't. It's really hard for me to pinpoint. Like I just feel pain, but I don't know where in the body, and I don't know how to treat it. I just feel like shit basically all the time.
Yeah.
And that's like when it gets really bad, and that's usually when I know that I need to ask for help. Like now I do know that's
Yeah.
when I need to ask for help, is when I start to feel this connection with my body. Because
Yeah.
usually, like if it's going good and I notice, for example, that I have a lot of headaches, then it usually, like I have to pay attention to that and actually do something about it, because it's probably my anxiety starting. Like if it's the jaw or like the head, it's usually the anxiety starting again.
All
So I have
right.
to address the issue. Otherwise, it tends to spiral. So what do you was it your experience too with it?
So when I've gone through my most I suppose depressed states, I tend to go into a really bad spiral of not looking after myself at all. So
Oh, yes.
the way that it presents for me is that I don't eat, so therefore I don't have I lose energy, and I get stomach pain
Yes.
and things like that. And it was interesting you mentioned about your jaw, but because of maybe partly the actual physical manifestations of things like depression and anxiety, but also coupled with malnourishment, I noticed that I feel like I've been grinding my teeth.
Yes.
Because it's
Definitely.
yeah, like I noticed that even when I just get hungry, if I get too hungry, I get that ache in my jaw, just because I think my body's trying to say, you know that you need to start eating something now, right? Like you haven't got any energy.
Yeah,
But
same for me.
yeah,
Definitely.
the depression just kills my appetite, and I kind of like go through days on end and go, I haven't eaten at all today.
Oh,
But
for me, it makes me eat more.
oh
But
really?
yes,
Hmm.
because my normal appetite is like actually like not very big. But when I get depressed, I tend to eat like one, two pizza by myself, just a lot of food. Because
Oh.
like I think like I've reflected on this a few times, and
Mm.
I think that it's because when I'm depressed, like eating is the only thing that makes me feel things. So it's an easy way to get at least some easy enjoyment out of my day.
Yeah.
It-
I could totally
And
get that.
pizza, yeah.
I think even like on a like a physio, if you look at that on a physiological standpoint, like eating gives you energy to release endorphins. Like we're motivated by our brains to eat, so it makes sense to. And I think it's quite common as well. A lot of people kind of
Oh
they
yes.
depression eat, don't they?
Like
They're like, I
feeling
need to.
tired and then wanting to eat because your brain knows that eating gives you energy.
Yeah.
So your brain is like trying to find a fix to your problem, and it's like, hey, you remember last time you ate that huge ass pizza? You got energy after this. Let's try that again, so that you
Yeah.
get that energy that you're lacking. Except that it doesn't work, so you keep like going for more and more. I feel like yeah, this makes sense.
I get that. It's really weird because like, from my point of view, I completely lose my appetite, and I think that maybe what I'm doing there, I think I'm pretty certain on this actually, which is that because I see a lot of things from a very introspective standpoint, which
Yes.
I'll explain in a bit as well. But I feel like what I do is I go, no, you shouldn't be eating as punishment. Like
Oh, I see.
I'm blaming
Yeah, yeah.
myself.
I definitely have other ways to like punish my body
Yeah.
when I'm depressed, and for me it's more related to sleep. Because like
Yes.
definitely sleep would give me more energy, but my brain prevents me from sleeping
Yeah.
and like just punishes me all night with like nasty thoughts.
Yeah.
Just jeez.
I think that makes a lot of sense actually because um, sleeplessness it's really weird. Like depression presents so like differently to the
Yeah,
fact that
so
it's like
differently.
they're like, oh, you could be depressed, so you might be eating more, or you might not be eating at all, or you might be sleeping too much, or you might not be able to sleep at all.
I've had both. I've had times in life where I slept around between 12 hours and 18 hours a day.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, that phase was because I had a huge ass trauma that I just went through, and I could not physically deal with it. So like I was just skipping days, basically buying myself sometimes, and also like I don't know if I can talk about it on stream. You can stop me if, like again, but I also had a huge weed addiction. Not addiction, but I was a huge weed user at that time, and that was like really brutal.
Yeah.
But that was my way of stalling because I had no access to help from anyone I knew or from a psychiatrist. Like I didn't know how to even ask for help, so I was kind of stuck in this state and just trying to maintain myself alive.
Yeah. So it's like a really, the way you dealt with it was a very, I suppose like an avoidance. It was like,
Yes.
don't deal with life, move away from, like try to disassociate yourself from reality as much as possible, and then
Oh yeah, definitely.
that way you don't have to worry about it.
And I used to feel really bad about this because like usually people tell you no, don't avoid your problem, like this is bad and whatever, but like I've come to a place where I think actually like basically I forgave myself in a way. Like it sounds very religious in a way, but like basically I don't blame myself anymore because I think actually looking back at what resources I had at the time, like no money, no place to live because I was homeless as well, because yay, why not, no place to live, huge trauma that I had to deal with. Like this was basically the best I could do at the time. So like I think the strategy of how to deal with these kind of issues depend on what resources you have available at the time.
Yeah.
So like sometimes it might look like you're doing the worst thing for yourself, but usually you can tell. I mean, we do have a instinct of survival. So like
Yeah.
even when we're suicidal, we still have to fight this instinct. So in a way, whatever we're doing at any moment is always kind of the best you can do at this moment with the stuff you know and the stuff you have resource to.
Yeah.
I feel, at least.
I think you're right there. I especially when it comes to the way. I mean, to go back to a kind of physiological thing. In the brain, we take the path of least resistance. So the way that you
Yes.
can use that to your best advantage. We could say, if I kind of force myself to start doing certain behaviors, then that becomes the path of least resistance, because we're so used to taking that path that we move in that path. But that's how habits like circulate. And if you identify a quick fix in your life, then it would be only natural to then start taking that quick fix, because even though there might be like negative repercussions that happen further on in life, that's something that bit of the brain doesn't have to deal with. It's like, no, I'm just doing this.
Yes.
I'm just doing
It
this part of my
doesn't
job.
deal with long term.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that we present that very very commonly in like loads of things in our lives that we don't necessarily think about all the time, because we don't even connect those two things. Like people who don't want to put in all their effort in work and things like that, they don't progress. That not progressing thing doesn't actually present right now, so they don't connect those things. And it takes a lot of retrospective thinking and a lot of real mental energy and help, I think, in a lot of cases, to be able to do that. Yeah.